So, as many of you know by now, a few weeks ago I took my camera to the beach and it filled up with sand. As a result, I've not been able to film the video I was supposed to be filming. Thankfully, I do still have a fairly decent webcam. As a result, I've decided to make a rather different sort of video, in the form of a numbered list. Yes, today I will be counting down the top 11 Jurassic Park sequels. Why top 11? Because I am a talentless fraud. Now, I know what you're thinking. How can it be top 11 if there are only 4 Jurassic Park sequels? Oh my sweet summer child, there are many more sequels than just those, and those aren't even the best. Oh, also, spoilers ahead. Number 11, Jurassic Time, the memoir of John Parker Hammond. Jurassic Time is a fan-edited audiobook of the memoirs of John Hammond. Now you might think that being fan-made won't qualify it for this video, but in fact it is so much more than that. For a start, all of the recordings of John Hammond are from the late great Richard Attenborough himself, recorded for use in the video game Jurassic Park Trespasser. While the game itself was critically panned for its janky controls and need for a high-powered PC to play, the involvement of Attenborough and Spielberg in the underlying story and lore of the game was too good an opportunity to be lost to the sands of time. And so, a group of fans edited the recordings of Hammond into a chronological order to tell a clear story of the conception of the InGen Company and Site B. Unfortunately, partly due to the rushed nature of the game, not every planned line of dialogue was recorded, so the finished product is incomplete in some places, which is particularly notable when Hammond gives a rundown of the dinosaurs, or briefly touches on the events of the first film. That said, I would very much recommend any fan to check this out. It's available on YouTube and on the Jurassic Time website, along with a more complete book which further strengthens the story. Number 10. The Lost World. The novel. So you might question the appearance of the novel on the list. After all, it's a sequel to the Jurassic Park novel, not the film. However, I didn't specify that we were only talking about film sequels, and I think this one qualifies. Even if you were to imagine this book to be a sequel to the film, you wouldn't have to change much, as Ian Malcolm is brought back from the dead and Donald Gennaro is killed off between the books to bring the sequel more in line with the film canon. So what makes this book worthy of being on this list? For a start, the dinosaurs. This book is notable for including Carnotaurus, and unlike in Fallen Kingdom, it's a unique camouflage nocturnal predator. However, what really makes this book stand out is the depiction of dinosaurs as part of an ecosystem. While most sequels have shunned much in the way of species interactions outside of fights between predators, this book shows herds of hadrosaurs scattering among sauropods for safety from raptors, packs of Procopsognathus feeding at latrine sites on the abundance of insects, and the eventual extinction of all the dinosaurs on the island caused by a disease spread by the carnivores. This book also has great characters, arguably more fun than the previous novel, such as Doc Thorne, the philosophical retired engineer, Sarah Harding, who is way more badass than her movie counterpart, and Richard Levine, the arrogant young scientist who wears khaki and yet spends most of his time indoors working on museum specimens. So basically me! Also, neither of the kids in this kill a raptor with gymnastics, although there is a great scene where Sarah Harding and Kelly chase down a velociraptor on a motorbike. This scene was later ripped off in Jurassic World. Number 9.
The Real Jurassic Park.
So here's where things get real meta. The Real Jurassic Park is an in-universe sequel to Jurassic Park, narrated by Jeff Goldblum as Ian Malcolm. First, it touches on the plausibility of creating dinosaurs, and the current efforts that can make that possible. Having established the possibility of cloning dinosaurs, we then see various paleontologists discussing the traits of dinosaurs and how they would impact keeping them in captivity, while zookeepers try to figure out how they would manage these factors. A lot of this centers on Jack Horner and Robert Bakker touring the San Diego Zoo, who, as we know, are both canonical characters to the films. At one point, the pair discuss setting up their own Jurassic Parks where they work, which foreshadows a comic book which came out much later. This also means that we have this excellent transition.
And then my teacher told me about this other book by a guy named Bakker, and he...
Another brief mention from the original film of condors is brought up, as we see a captive breeding program in California. Also, make sure to look out for the appearance of this recently extinct animal.
Going into East Africa now. These are the northern white rhinoceros.
Number 8.
Westworld.
So I sort of cheated a bit here because this one technically isn't a sequel. It's a prequel. Westworld was released in 1973, written and directed by Michael Crichton, who of course did the Jurassic Park novels. Like Jurassic World, this film shares a lot of similarities with Jurassic Park, with a high-tech amusement park that goes AWOL, albeit in this case with robots built to replicate humans from different historical eras, in a park called Delos. In fact, this film features the first use of a computer virus in any movie, which is also used by Nedry to shut off the power in the 1993 film. There is a fan theory that the dinosaurs in Jurassic Park are in fact robots, built using the technology from Westworld, although this is unlikely given the other sequels. However, the wariness of Gennaro and the park's investors may in part stem from the incidents that occurred at Delos. After all, Westworld is set in 1983 and Jurassic Park in 1989, so the events would still be fresh in everyone's minds. Number 7. Hunt for the Wilderpeople is a sweet New Zealand indie comedy that is part of the Jurassic Park franchise. It stars Sam Neill as a depressed Alan Grant who has gone into hiding and changed his name, reverting to his old ways of hating fat children. His wife adopts a troubled teenager called Ricky, but unfortunately she passes away and the boy runs off. In his pursuit of his ward, Grant, now known as Hector, breaks his ankle. As they are now stuck in the forest, Hector passes on the survival skills he picked up from Eric in Jurassic Park 3 to Ricky. However, the real turning point of the film is when the pair rediscover the huia, an extinct bird from New Zealand. Remembering the joys of discovering dinosaurs, Alan Grant brightens up and befriends Ricky, agreeing at the end of the film to join him in trying to get a picture of the bird to prove its existence. It's not an earth-shattering piece of the Jurassic Park canon, but it's nice to catch up with Alan Grant, and it will be interesting to see how he reintegrates into the main plot of the franchise in Jurassic World 3. Number 6.
My hat is like a shark's fin. Deepest bluest, my hat is like a shark's fin.
Deep Blue Sea is Jurassic Park underwater. It stars Samuel L. Jackson reprising his role as Ray Arnold, confirming the fan theory that he didn't die in Jurassic Park, and that wasn't his arm. However, because he was assumed dead, and InGen had already paid money to his family, he decided to change his name to Russell Franklin. Due to some safety concerns, he is sent to a facility where scientists are performing research on mako sharks, collecting material from their brains to find a cure for Alzheimer's. However, unbeknownst to him, they have genetically modified these sharks, and no one better understands the threat of genetically modified predators than him, as he narrowly escaped them in Jurassic Park. Unfortunately, he makes the mistake of making an inspirational speech too close to a hatch leading directly to the water.
First, we're gonna seal off this.
It should be noted that Deep Blue Sea, a film from 1999, is heavily ripped off by Jurassic World, a film from 2015. For a start, the characters. The main character is a muscle-bound animal handler guy. The female lead is snotty and emotionally distant, and basically entirely responsible for all the bad things that happen, including refusing to let the big bad animal get killed early on. There's a techie comic relief character, a control room lady, and a black guy who doesn't die. Then there's the turn of events. We see a shark get fed to a bigger marine predator, an exploding helicopter, and a character dies in the most unnecessarily drawn-out way. Oh wait, I remember, this bit in Deep Blue Sea is actually vital for the plot, while this bit in Jurassic World is just because the director's a psychopath. Another thing this movie does better than Jurassic World is that the woman who caused all the havoc actually dies. Yes, there's no romantic moment for her at the end. It's boom, nom, and then the black guy saves the day. Number 5.
Spy Kids 2, The Island of Lost Dreams.
Spy Kids 2, easily the best of the Spy Kids trilogy, is also one of the best Jurassic Park sequels. Set on an isolated island, probably one of the 5 deaths, it develops concepts from the novels, namely the breeding of miniature versions of animals and then selling them as pets. It stars Steve Buscemi as Dr. Romero, a man responsible for the creation of these beasts. Like his mentor Dr. Wu, Romero decides to hybridize some of these animals, but when he accidentally sizes them back up, things go amok. This movie from 2002 introduces genetically modified hybrids 13 years before Jurassic World, although it is likely that the Chaos Effect toy line played a role in shaping the look of some of these animals, namely the Slithered taking notable inspiration from the Tanaconda. The end credits scene shows Dinky Winks, a theme park entrepreneur, discussing transforming Romero's Island into a theme park, which is a plot thread I really hope they pick up in the next Jurassic World film. This movie also has this line.
Do you think God stays in heaven because he too lives in fear of what he's created?
Which is better than anything Ian Malcolm spouts in either The Lost World or Fallen Kingdom. Number 4. Now, I was initially skeptical about the 2014 Godzilla when it was first announced. I thought back to the previous attempt to integrate Godzilla into the Jurassic Park franchise, and how it just ended in more needless callbacks than Fallen Kingdom, and how they screwed up his origin, and then introduced all those rip-off raptor baby Godzillas. But boy was I blown away by this newer Godzilla. The cinematography was absolutely on point. Like Jurassic World and Jaws before it, the filmmakers had the sense to keep Godzilla concealed for most of the movie and focused on his opponents, so when the big G finally appeared, it was all the more epic. Special props go to the set design team for really making this movie feel like a Jurassic Park movie. The compound containing the Muto cocoon was particularly on point, and then how the animal broke the wires that were keeping it in as a subtle but welcome callback to an underrated JP moment. Top-notch stuff. Unfortunately, neither Fallen Kingdom nor King of the Monsters have done a particularly good job integrating this Godzilla into the JP franchise, and I can only hope they try harder with Jurassic World 3. Number 3. How to Train Your Dragon 2. How to Train Your Dragon 2 is what The Lost World should have been. Set in a post-apocalyptic world of escaped hybrid dinosaurs called dragons, where people style themselves on pop cultural depictions of Vikings, we get to see how different societies have adapted and how they settle their differences. You see, there's this group of mercenaries who capture and enslave dragons for use as weapons, while our protagonists have befriended the dragons. Now, unlike our protagonists in The Lost World, who decide to let the dinosaurs free and kill everyone and wreck everything, initially our protagonists try to reason with the dragon catchers. It's only after they realise that this isn't an option that they decide to break the dragons out. The characters are also significantly better in this film. The bad guy is actually a bad guy, not a charming, well-meaning man who just so happens to kill animals for fun. The more sympathetic mercenaries are the guys on the ground who don't have much other chance of employment. Also, this film is just great in general. The relationships between the characters feel real, and when a character dies, it's legitimately emotional and actually has an impact on other characters' growth, rather than just an excuse for a humorous back and forth between the other characters.
No! Get away from him! Go on! Get out of here!
Rex just fed, so he won't stalk us for food. Just fed? I assume you're talking about Eddie. You might show a little respect. The man saved our lives by giving his.
Number 2.
DreamWorks How to Train Your Dragon.
The first one. Honestly, all of these movies are really great, but there's another aspect I want to talk about relating to the Jurassic Park franchise that really elevates this movie above all the other sequels. One of the few things Fallen Kingdom got praise for was the inclusion of a number of new dinosaur species, but as I pointed out in my review, most of them don't really do anything unique. Baryonyx, Carnotaurus, Allosaurus, they could all be used interchangeably and the movie wouldn't be any different. In most movies with dragons, there's only one type of dragon. A dragon. But what makes How to Train Your Dragon so great is that it features 7 different species of dragon, and they all are completely different. And more than that, they establish very early on how they're different. In the first 5 minutes, we get a scene where most of their powers and skills are established, and this lore is further embellished with sequences in the arena. This means that as viewers, we know what each of the dragons is capable of, in this movie and the sequels. Also, this approach of storytelling really plays well into the character of Hiccup. He's a guy who learns from observation and then puts that into play. This is fully realised in the final showdown where he defeats the Red Death by blasting fire down its throat, igniting flammable gas and blowing it up based on observations he made in the first half of the film. Listen up, screenwriters, this is how you write a scientist character in an action movie. And finally, the number 1 sequel to Jurassic Park is... It's Prehistoric Park. Did someone say Park 2, baby? How could it have been anything else? 9 more seasons. Shut up, Prehistoric Park. It's Prehistoric Park. Of course, did you think it was going to be Fallen Kingdom? I take it back. If anything else wrong, there was nothing else. It could have been. It looked like Prehistoric Park. Please, somebody listen to me.